Hey, how's it going? I'm Rory from RateMyFuneral.com. That was Rate, by the way, and welcome along to another Christmas tutorial. So firstly, Merry Christmas. Touch of Bailey's, any excuse, it's that type of year. Time of year, not type of year, whatever. So today I'm going to do a tutorial that is a bit Christmassy. So we're going to make some cool Christmas icicle lights. Let me show you a quick clip. Zoom. This is basically what we're going to make. And now while I've not built it so it's anatomically correct for that, it does the job in quite a nice way. Oh, I don't know why it did that. And it's if you look at the way the lights move, it kind of does the right thing. And we're doing some dynamics, we're doing some spline dynamics, some hinges, some global illumination, a little tiny subtle hint of camera movement, and that's, yeah, a bunch of stuff in this tutorial. So let's hop on in and let's get on with it. So the beginning. This is going to be a little bit technical. We're going to create quite an advanced system with quite a few advanced pieces, but we'll do it in such a way that makes it really, really easy. And you can use these for any other project. You know, you can take these little parts of this, the concepts, and use them for so many other things. I think you'll really like it anyway. So first of all, I'm going to create a cube. Wow, that's a bit big, isn't it? So let's just zoom out of that a little bit. Right, I said cube. I know it wasn't a cube. It's a cylinder. It looks like a slightly more round cube than a cube. Anyway, I'm talking nonsense. Right, so let's put that up. I'm going to rotate that. Press R to get rotate, hold shift to move in increments. Sorry if I'm going too fast. I've got a lot to get through, but I'll still try and explain as much as I can on the way. So we've created our cube. I'm going to create a copy of that. So spacebar gets you back to the move tool. Hold control and click and drag, and that makes a copy. Press R to get back to your rotate, and hold shift, and boom, there we go. We've got our little loops. I'm just going to move that down a little bit. This bottom one, I'm going to move to the bottom and do slice. There we go. So now we have this formation, and half of this we are only using the mechanics of and we don't need in the actual thing, but more on that as we get to it. So the bottom one, let's call this one let's just call this one loop, and this one we'll call top ring. Right, I'm going to now go simulate dynamics connector, and I'm going to connect these two things with a hinge. I might use a ball joint actually. I don't want it to go too mad, but let's go ball and socket for now. We'll mix this up a little bit, and we'll put that between. And the top ring goes on A, and the bottom ring can go on B. Now, I have a feeling if I go simulation collider body and simulation rigid body, if I press play, yeah, not a lot's happening. And I think it's because it doesn't know that there's nothing in the middle of this geometry. It's kind of, this tag is basically thinking that's one complete closed object. So e.g. it's not seeing the hole in the middle. So if we come down into our tag settings and change that from automatic to static mesh, and then press play, still does nothing. So something's wrong. What is wrong? I don't know. I don't really understand. Let me just move that a little bit and press play. Oh, there we go. Look. Maybe it's because it was so dead center. I just needed to move it a little bit just so that it gets some. Yeah, I think that's all it is. It's just it was so dead center. So that's not a massive issue at the moment. We will worry about that later. So now that we've got that, let's grab these two things and pop them inside the top ring. So it's one closed system. Next, I want to create I'm going to create my icicle. So I'm going to use a capsule for this, just to try and speed things up a bit. So if we want to make it about that long, something like that. And perfect, that will do. Now, let's just stick a couple more height segments in. That gives us a bit more geometry to play with when we go to make it wibbly. And then we'll highlight capsule and press C. Go on to polygon mode, and into this view here and change to the rectangular selection and grab all the top polygons and press delete. Beautiful. Now if we go to points mode, you'll see though that it leaves a bunch behind, so we're going to just, with the object selected and point mode, press Ctrl A, right click and do optimize, and that will get rid of all those additional points that we don't need anymore. Something else I'm going to fix down the bottom here as well. Let's just zoom in a little and have a look. Let's go to line, no, let's stick on point mode, sorry. And we want a live selection, and we'll just grab that bottom one. And I'm just going to pull that down. And I'll go along. That was UL, by the way, to get the loop selection tool. And we'll just keep doing that until we're UL, until we've got a bit more of a point at the bottom. Do again, UL, drag that down, UL, boom, 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 boom. And we'll move one more down just a little bit. There we go. Lovely. Right, so we've got a nice point at the bottom. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is put that capsule, not inside, but I'm going to put inside of it a taper. So hold shift, boom, like that, and that puts it in, makes it the right shape and everything. So we then do strength. Now we are upside down, so we'll now rotate. So press R again, rotate, hold shift, around 180. Cool. That's looking good. I'm going to take a little bit of that curvature off because I don't really want it to look bulbous, because we're going to do that with the next bit, which is on the capsule again, into deformers and displacer. We'll add that one. Now our displacer, we need to go to shading, shader, and noise, and boom, look at that. It's already now looking kind of like what we want. Let's do it. So basically, if we go into our noise shader, we now need to tweak these until it looks about right for our icicle. Maybe it's under object height. Ooh, it's a bit weird. So leave that like that one. Okay, maybe something. Maybe leave it at 100. I don't know. It's acting a bit weird. Shading, global scale. We want to make that a bit bigger than it was. There we go. And then I think maybe in the object, something like this. Oh, there we go. Something like that. There we go. Anyway, adjust that to taste. Just basically play with it. The next thing we want to do is in the fall off, change this from infinite to box. And now one thing I've noticed is our box is all the way up there, which is not what we want. So let's move our fall off to 0%. Move that down and move the whole thing so that basically it just doesn't include the very, very top. See, so it's not including that. And then that way it means that it'll have a smoother entry into our cap, which is what we're going to create next. But just because this is going to start getting messy, I'm just going to hold down Alt, click on those two, and let's hide those there. The capsule we can also put into a subdivision surface, which will make it just look a little bit more kind of wobbly, which is fine. Wobbly is what we need. And if we put in here this one down to 0, it doesn't affect our view too much, but it will use 3 lots of subdivision when it renders. So just to explain this really, really quickly, that's what it will look like when it renders it officially in the final. That's the number it is in the editor. Simple as, okay? So we've got that. We now need to get create a cylinder again. And this is going to be our cap, which is literally just going to sit on the top here. Let's use these, right? So something like that, move that down. Great. And that we move up so that they're in that link and put them below our loop. So what does this now do if we press play? Absolutely nothing. That's fine. That's fine. Cool. But we've made our initial dude. Basically, if I was to get all of this and just rotate it a little bit, you'll see it does nothing. It's because I've made a slight error. I was supposed to put these underneath loop. There we go. So now, so let me just see if we just loop. There we go. See, so that's now wibbling around a bit, which is grand. I think we also need to go into here, by the way, and change this to a moving mesh. All right, and let's just put that back to about where it was, because we will tweak it all later and get that just right. Super. Now, our ring at the top, I want to hide. So I'm going to make that hidden by holding Alt and clicking in there twice. However, I want to be able to see the rest of it, so I'm going to turn that one to green. There we go. So now we can still see that. Perfect, 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 perfect. Right. The next thing I want to do is put the ball inside. So let's go to our capsule, which is actually our icicle, and put X-ray on so we can see inside. We will create a sphere, which we can move down and shrink. So if we press T, we can then shrink that. I want it the size of the smallest point, which it's going to go to, which is going to be something like that. Now this is the problem with it no longer being straight, so we need to put that back to being straight. There we go. Right. Okay, so yeah, now that's fine. And I'm going to start it hidden inside the cap. Great. Now I'm going to use an effector to animate it, just so it makes it a bit easier for tweaking later. And an old school technique used to be that you put it in a MoGraph cloner and then make it one. And I actually still use this because it just gives me a little bit more control rather than doing it with the effector with a normal object. So that's the reason I'm doing this. But basically, yeah, that sphere, put inside of a cloner. So just because I did that really, really quickly, let me just delete that. So with the sphere selected, go to MoGraph, hold down Alt and click cloner, and that will put that in there. And then remove the count down to 1. Also, yeah, that doesn't matter actually, because we're only having 1. So that's fine. Then with that cloner highlighted, we go MoGraph effector plane, and you'll see that that jumps up. And the reason is because under parameter, we've got some settings here, and that defaults to 100. So we zero that out, but then actually roll it down so that it's at the bottom point, which is about there. Now, this is the clever bit. If we go to the fall off and change this to linear, I'm just going to press R and rotate it so it's sideways. It's a bit easier to see. But basically, wherever this is put, it will move the ball to that position. Now, the reason, like I say, the reason I'm doing it like this is this. If I animate this, that's one thing to animate to change the time it goes down. So it just makes the life a little bit easier in a little while. So let's animate the plane. So with the plane selected, we'll make a keyframe. And we'll go forward, I don't know, what, 25 frames, and move it until it's at the bottom, like that. There we go. Now, that's really important that I don't want any pauses. I just want that to literally go vroom, down to the bottom, which it does. Great. Let's make sure that that is all inside our system as well. It's really important because we want that to follow it as it sort of tilts. Great. That animation, yep, you could animate it going backwards, forwards and stuff like that, but there's a really nice, easy way to do this. If we go to Layout, Animate, select Plane, and then here you've got some options. On the after, you can actually do a few different things. Now there's Oscillate, so if you do Oscillate, what that'll do is that will go up and then back down again, or down and then back up again. And your repetitions you can pop in here, so let's just stick in 100 in there. We'll also give ourselves a few more keyframes to play with, so let's say 250 for now. And what you'll see is now that that is now going up and down, up and down. Cool, but that's not what we want. We want repeat. So we choose repeat, and it now goes down it like that. Perfect. And just so that there's no blending or any weirdness, I'm just going to select all of those. And this little button here makes the keyframes linear, so it doesn't kind of blend, which is maybe what you want, maybe not what you want. It's a matter of what you're after. Okay, so where are we? Where are we? Let's go back to standard. What we've got now is we've got an icicle that is swinging on a little hinge. We've got a ball that's inside it that's moving from the top to the bottom. Brilliant. Okay, the next thing I want to do is create the wire that it's going to run across. So we'll go to the pen tool. Let's hop into yeah, top down mode is fine because we'll just move this. I want to make sure it's nice and long, so somewhere over here I'm just going to place a point and I'm going to press escape, and making sure I'm in point mode, I'm going to select that point and then hold control and click and drag across like that, and then that just gives me a really nice easy straight line. Perfect. Control A to grab both those points, right click and do round, and what this does is it gives you the option to add many points in between. It's like subdividing, but it just works slightly differently, and I just find it easier. So we make, say, 40 points, and that gives us a nice even number of points, but they are soft interpolated, so we do need to right click and just do hard interpolation. Otherwise it looks really strange when you add the spline dynamics. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can now grab our top ring, which is what we're going to call our icicle. Let's call it an icicle. And is that spelled right? I don't know. Let's put that into a cloner and change the cloner mode from linear to object and pop the spline in there. Boom, there we go. We have our line of carrots along our spline. But there's obviously a few issues here. So I'm going to change the distribution to even. And I'm going to go to transform and rotate them 90 degrees. And I'm also going to rotate in the H 90 degrees. Now this may change as we go, but that's fine. We will tweak it as we go. And I'm going to move them up so that they are somewhere in the middle of our spline, like that. There we go. Great. Next, the spline. I am going to let's calm down a little bit on our cloner, because I've just realized our spline ends. I've lost it now. There it is. Our spline ends here, you see, and obviously we don't want the light going all the way to the end because we want it to kind of dangle off the screen. So we need to go to our cloner. Let's have a look here. Let's see, we need to move these in a bit. So if we look at start, there we go, we can move them in there, we can move them in there, and we'll maybe reduce the number so there's not so many. There we go. Right, so we've got a bit of string either end. Super. String, it's not string, wire, whatever. Okay, so we've got our bit of wire each end, we've got that, spline, right click, hair dynamics, spline dynamics. And now if I press play, it all just falls, which is obviously not really what we want. So what we want to do is plop a null at this end and hold control and click and drag to make a copy of it at this end. So we've got two nulls, and we'll call this one left and we'll call this one right, and it does depend on your direction that you're facing, but that will do. And then on our spline we're going to go simulation, no we're not, we're going to go hair tags constraint, because we're going to constrain this spline to a null. So we need to grab our point at the end here, select our constrain and pop the left object. What we'll see if we press play now, absolutely nothing happens, and the reason was because I didn't press set. Press set, bang, and that will save that. There we go. Now we've got this kind of Tarzan swinging rope thing, so it's looking good. We need a copy of this, and we will put the right hand one in this time. Oops. And we'll select that point and press set. So now when we press go, we get this nice, there we go, we get this cool dangly with swingy lights. And right, it's probably a bit too much, but what I'm going to do is just going to let that run for a moment and then pause it, and then on my spline dynamics go to the tag and set initial, and then that will stop it doing that initial bounce and it won't be quite so much. There we go. So now obviously that's going a bit crazy, but now these have changed. See, this is what I was saying, it may change. So we change this transform, and we'll move, oops, we'll move that one back down. There we go. We'll have it just slightly off, but we'll lift it we need to get it back inside our string. It's a bit tricky to see. Okay. It's very tricky to see. All right. Where are you? I think it's somewhere around there. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, great. So now when we press go, yeah, we just get a nice bit of wobble. Perfect. If they are going a bit crazy, you can do some stuff with the connector. Like I say, I've chosen ball and socket. Maybe hinge might work a bit better. Yeah, it kind of depends what you're after. Maybe we'll go hinge. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. So that's up to you, whatever you want there. Now, what we should have, if we look a bit closer, obviously we can't see inside our things at the moment, so we need to make those transparent. So let's create some textures. So texture, firstly, color. Let's turn the color off. Transparency on, but down to say about 80%. Reflectance. Now this is R16 onwards. It's a bit different if you're previous to R16, but I'm sure you can figure this out anyway. But basically we're going to add a roughness, so it looks something a bit like that, and I'm going to drop the specular quite a bit, maybe pull the roughness strength down. Something along those lines will do for now. So we'll pop that, not on our whole thing, we'll just pop that on our subdivision surface, because now we should be able to see. No, so we've got a problem. We've got a problem somewhere. Where have we got a problem? I'm just gonna disable that spline dynamic a second, just to. So this. Oh, it's not inside the system. That should be inside the system. So we put that in the loop there, like that. Look. There we go. We can see that we've got our balls are moving now, because each one should have a ball. All right, great. So our plane is inside our system. This is what I mean by it gets a little bit complicated. Plane is inside the system. We've turned the spline dynamics off for the moment. Let's turn them back on. Okay, so now we get a bit of cool wobble, but all our lights are moving. Now if you need to adjust the speed of that, all you do is literally grab this keyframe with the plane selected and just move that down a little bit, and you can just affect that. And that's how easy that is. And that's why I've done it like that, you see. Also though, I'm going to hide the plane, so I'm just going to turn that off there, just so it doesn't make the screen look so busy. The next thing I will do is offset the way those lights are moving. So the way we're going to do this is using the time offset trick with the shader effector. So with the cloner selected, go to MoGraph, effector, shader, and that is the cloner that is placing these icicles on the wire, not the cloner that's moving the ball. It's very important. So a couple of things to do on here. Firstly, under parameter, we need to turn off so that it's not affecting scale, because I don't want that. Next, I'll turn off color mode because we're not going to use that, but we are going to use time offset mode. So we'll put in something like 25 in there, and then if we press play, we won't actually see any real difference. Let me just turn this plane back on again so you can only see those moving. Right, so we're not seeing it yet, but the reason is because we need to go to shader and put in a gradient. Boom, there we go. Now we've got our lights whizzing along. You can see them there. So if I was to hide that, you can see there. Imagine they're the lights. That's the sequence it's running across like that. And depending on how you change this gradient will affect that. So you know, if you swap this round so it goes the other way, they'll go the other way. If you increase the speed, in the shader effector, there it is. Maybe if you put that to 10, you know, it's going to be only ever so slight. But if you put it to 100, then it will be a lot further. And we'll stick with 25 for now. Okay, great. Now, now that we've done that, just a note, that shader does not need to be inside of our system. Let's turn that one back on and we'll hide the planes again. Right, we need to make a texture for our cap. So that can be a kind of white that's nice and shiny. So we just add a Beckman layer, go to Fresnel, dielectric, and that's looking pretty cool just like that, to be fair. So we'll pop that on our loop and on our cylinder. I was just holding control, make a copy of that by the way. Then we need to create a texture which is going to be our little light ball. So we'll turn off reflectance, turn off color, turn on luminance. Choose your color, put it in here. I'm going to go for a blue, and then I'm going to ramp that right up to about sort of 400. There we go. And put that on the ball. We need to also, our spline, we can go to sweep nerve, hold down Alt, and then put it inside a sweep. And then we need to get a circle, hold down Shift, and then that makes a circle. Obviously that's a bit big, so T to shrink that. And if you are at all worried about the sheer amount of polygons going on there, go into that circle and just roll that up a little until there's not quite so many. Okay, and now what we will see is when we run that, we get this nice thick line that bounces and so on and so forth. Great. Let's make a nice dark plastic color for the wire. That's luminance, something like that. And the reflectance again. I'm just going to do exactly the same thing again. Let's just go into the Fresnel, something like that, but we'll maybe drop that specular right down. Cool. And we'll pop that on the sweep. Right. Again, I'm really hoping I'm not going too fast for you, but let's just, if we just do a quick render. We need to go forward a few frames so that some of the balls will come out. But we can see the balls are inside there. The next thing we want to do is make sure that global illumination is enabled, so that global illumination. And I just tend to stick it to interior preview when I'm messing around because that seems to do the job quite well. But now you can see you're getting these nice glowing, see? That's cool. So the only light in the scene is being provided by these at the moment. So that's fine. The next thing I want to do is create a wall in the background. So I'll just make a plane, rotate it 90 degrees, and expand that size, something like that. Let's look in our top view. I want these to be right up against this wall, so we'll do rewind and let them swing and pause it, and that's about the furthest point. So we'll just move that back, just so they don't intersect. And you could use dynamics to make it so that they bang against them, but for now I don't want to do that. I just want to keep it simple. Let's just move this down a little, something like that. And that's going to be our background. I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to use my text product, which you can get from my website if you don't want to have to make all new textures, because under here is masonry and then there's bricks. And this is kind of nice and easy for just chucking some bricks into a scene. Boom. So that's going to be my background. Now you can, like I say, you can make up your own texture, get your own brick material, or do whatever you want to do if you are just copying this. Or have a look at ratemyfuneral.com, have a look at text. It's my texture pack, which has all the most commonly used textures at your fingertips. You don't need to make them up. Alright, so now that we have that, let's just hit render now and have a quick look at see what that looks like. Oh, cool. So we're looking at quite a bit better already. Yeah, we're not far. We're nearly there. In my version, what I did was I did add an extra light just to give a bit of a shadow on the wall. So I went in, oh, not that one. I held here, area light, and move it right back. And because I don't want it too straight on, so I put it over here and then turned it a little bit like that. And set the shadow to area. You know what I should have done? I should have created the camera. Right, so let's get it in about the right place. Something like that. Let's just see where they droop to. We'll line this up nicely. There we go, cool. And we'll create a camera. There we go. Lovely job. And I will go something like an 80mm. Let's go inside that and zoom back out a little. So it's something like that. let's have a quick look. Wow. So obviously that light is making it super, super bright. So let's reduce it until it's about right. So I tend to reduce things by halves and check again. Yep, so we still want to go another half. Oh, it's still very interfery. To be fair, this is probably like about 6 then. And I might even make it just slightly warmer, just to try and push into those blues a little. Oh, it's still really bright. Maybe 4. It's not looking too bad. I might turn on Ambient Occlusion. But what that will do, because we've got essentially glass, Ambient Occlusion in cinema and glass tends to go a bit funny. But to be fair, it's kind of working all right in this case. Yeah, no, it's not too bad. So if we just have a look first at some other points, when let's go right. The very first frame, obviously, none of the lights are visible, so it should be pretty dark. Yeah, so that's what it looks like before the lights come on. And then if I just go in just like a couple of frames, we should start to see, no, maybe a little bit more. I just want to catch when the first light starts to appear. So it's over here, you see. So we can just check that that is lighting up that back wall nicely. We're getting the nice shadows. Yeah, it's looking pretty cool. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. I think the only thing I did was I added a camera movement. So my camera here, set a keyframe on frame 1. Actually, I moved it out a little like that. And then on the final keyframe, I just moved it in like that, and rewind. And then we can see it's really subtle. There's just like this tiny little camera movement. It just adds a little bit of parallax in between them and the wall. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. So if we take a look at the example once again. So the scale is a bit different. I was a bit closer, and obviously this is the final render, so you can see it nicely moving. It makes a nice glowing effect on the wall. I think that's come out quite well. It's up to you if you want to do it, but certainly there should be a bunch of techniques in there that you can utilize elsewhere. So I hope that was okay. I hope that was an interesting tutorial. I hope that gets you through some Christmassy stuff. Please feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you think. If you know any better ways of doing anything that I've achieved, I've done in here, please feel free, comment. I'm always up for learning. I've not always found the best way. I've just found a way, and that's what I do like about cinema. So yeah, like I say, please do check out the website. Text for textures if you're interested in that, and also there's my studios in Video Pro, which is obviously the nice lighting studio, saves you setting up all lights and everything, and yeah, there's maybe some other bits on there that you might like. Plus check out all the other tutorials, and hopefully I'll see you again soon in the next tutorial in the new year. Catch you later. Bye for now. Okay, so a quick look at the emitter, because this is quite fun. Options here, you can change the birth rate. So if we put this up to say 100, we'd get lots and lots and lots of cubes. Boosh, 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 boosh.